much. So it's going to be a clash of titans here as we move into Golden Aura for game number 1. In the top left is the red Terran. He is GuMiho.
And in the bottom right-hand side, it is his opponent for Team Liquid, Clem. And here we go. Golden Aura is going to be the map. Both players opening pretty normal here with a gas and a barracks. So nothing out of the ordinary. Very likely for them to both go for the second gas actually as they do. And yeah, we're going to have one base openings to start off. So lots of gas is going to be mined. There have been some openings where you go into barracks and then CC and TVTs, but not going to be the case here.
Yeah. So we got factory expands being the norm. We have had some experimentation, certainly with, well, experimentation is a strong word. We have people who chance the one racks expand. But like I've been prone to say, it feels kind of like the factory expand is almost a no-brainer in a lot of ways. Like theoretically, you can get ahead on the one racks expand, but I feel in practice, it very rarely happens. Almost always the factory expand player can get the, kind of like 2 SCVs. Or delay in the command center to make up for it. So no surprise to see the typical stuff coming out so far. The question is it actually consistently the Cyclone game? Because initially it was a build and you were like, that's interesting. And then in the last couple of weeks, it's been every single TVT up to those 8 Cyclones and then using them aggressively and then for some map control. And that can get interesting. And then sometimes, well, it gets a little silly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, talking to players here, like it feels like there's differing opinions, but for the most part, it is what we have been seeing as far as the shift in the meta. So I'd be curious to see how it develops in this tournament as well, right? Because a lot of them will come with new ideas, will be saving a lot of their best ideas or like a lot of their best counters for a tournament like this one. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the meta develop as well, as we now see GuMiho being a little bit kind of careful with the Reaper. And Clem even being more careful, just sitting it all the way back at home. Now GuMiho has his second Reaper, and still just choosing to be super defensive, so nothing crazy. First Cyclones on the way.
Yeah, Clem did add on that reactor, already going into the double Reapers to add on here. So he's going to have a mobility advantage that might come into effect. It has been super effective with the Reapers. When I think of Clem, I didn't necessarily think of the scariest player as far as every single step was scary. You know, like you say, the Korean players are scary because it feels like they can kill you at any time. But then Clem recently has been just demolishing opposing Terrans in the first 5 minutes by some insane micro. And we see that now with the help of some tools that he has the highest precision. Or accuracy, I guess is the word. So that's not a surprise, but Clem going for a similar number of Reapers of his opponent, then transferring over to Cyclones. It's GuMiho that's going to go into a more typical opening, or what used to be typical, which was Cyclone first. That's a great overall defensive tool, into those tanks, which you know are a stable part of the matchup.
Yes, indeed. Clem continuing to make the Cyclones, however, 2 at a time. Vikings on the way as well, so perhaps preempting that his opponent could be going for Ravens or something of the likes. And how do you like this? This probably gives Clem some map control, but how do you take advantage of that? Like, do you expand more, or like what do you do with the Cyclone advantage against tanks?
Well, you can actually try and tackle the fights, as we have a little bit of a Reaper scuffle going on here. Focus fire from Clem grabs up 2 SCVs, but no more. A little bit of scouting information as well. But yeah, you can actually try and win out against this, especially if you do go for the drop version. Clem did not. He went for Viking into Raven with Interference Matrix. So you can actually time this out perfectly for Interference Matrix to arrive with your Cyclones on your opponent's base. We've actually seen some people obviously still practicing. Like there is a Terran who was 2 seconds before Matrix and showed his hand. But now it's a very common build, and one in which obviously the Interference Matrix takes out the tank, the main defender against the Cyclones, and then you can actually just straight up win the game. If you do not, Cyclones on the map are very dangerous against the heavy tech pushouts of the Terran, like a GuMiho, that, you know, what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And so you can get the lock-ons of the tanks of the Ravens, but yeah, we're definitely going to be looking for Clem's timing on his Matrix and whether or not he can get a lot of damage done in the natural.
All right, he's going to be looking for it. There's going to be a couple of tanks out for GuMiho, but Clem is definitely looking out for blood here. The Cyclones are going to be extremely effective against Marines as well, as they have no delay on the lockdown. And here comes the first Raven push. It's going to be 5 Cyclones with it. The Raven is just looking to scout. We'll see that there is a Cyclone itself at the top there as aim high shows us the players microing in this very crucial moment.
Yeah, I think it's kind of important that GuMiho did get a scout on what the intentions were behind that Raven, because I'm not sure he saw the full extent of the army on the ground. And if he still had unsieged tanks, that would have been very awkward. But he does manage to get the scout, so basically positioning his units and making sure to siege up is pretty important here. Also making sure that he has his own counter-interference matrix just to help out, or maybe counter auto turrets actually. But now we have the scenario in which Clem's army 100% has to be following GuMiho's. If GuMiho gets sieged up with those tanks, the Cyclones get obliterated 2-shot here. So you gotta be following this and making sure they don't just make it across the map. The fact that it's already 60% across is actually very dangerous, and Clem's gonna make the call to go for a base trade.
Yeah, and this is a little bit dangerous though, because like you said, when the tanks are sieged, that's going to be a lot more difficult to dislodge, but Clem does get here first, so he's going to go to town on this SCVs. Really nice lockdowns, obviously, as yeah, there's no cooldown, all of them are going to fall, but on the other side, GuMiho is going to have a stronger hold, I feel like, with the tanks.
Okay, so in the case of a base trade, mobility matters a ton, right? The tanks will be sieged up right now on top of this production, but then what happens when everyone is lifting buildings? A bajillion Cyclones kill buildings faster than whatever's here, and they're better at getting the lock-ons as things get really crazy. So I think in a technical sense, GuMiho's army should be better, but it's the fact of it always being in position, always sieged up and always ready to go versus Clem's army.
That's an excellent point. So Clem is going to be taking things down a little bit slower, but he's more reliably with those Cyclones. He's already up ahead in supply by quite a bit, but a lot of that is in workers. So army-wise, I mean, it's not too different. In fact, GuMiho is a little bit ahead, but the armies should never look to clash here if you're Clem.
Well, I wasn't expecting this one, honestly, and that is a lot because both Terrans are going for the Cyclone shenanigans, but GuMiho getting the push out so far across was almost given the green light. Like, if Clem went back to defend that, I think he actually just dies, or it's a very difficult dislodge at the very least. He falls on his third, so on and so forth. Okay. But with the base trade complicating things, it can still go either way. It's just a matter of how they actually engage. And obviously, if Clem goes up the ramp, that's going to be a disaster. He's pulling the SCVs to try and get something done, but hardly anything. I don't even think he took down a Marine there. And now it's just, it's evacuation time. Like, you just are going to try and like base race this, I feel like. I'm actually a little surprised. I guess Clem is hoping he'll catch GuMiho trying to pull back. Yeah, the supply is so deceitful in this game as well, because, I mean, at the start it looked like, you know, like Clem is 30 supply ahead, but it's mostly workers. Now they have fallen, now he's way down. At the same time here, there's so much energy on the Ravens that if all the tanks can get disabled on the other side, there is a good chance that Clem can still take this engagement. Yeah, I mean, I do think GuMiho is well aware of that potential problem, right? He's not going to be silly and just go running around the map trying to find the bases and letting all of his unsieged tanks get locked on, and the Ravens aren't going to, you know, cast spells. Again, like the theory crafting says that GuMiho wins here, but Clem can still sometimes show some incredible micro. The Cyclone micro in general is the strongest strength, and he has his own Ravens, of course, so those are also will play a huge part, but yeah, if GuMiho can get his base across the map or guarded, I should say. If he gets his orbital guarded by his army, pretty sure he just wins. Yeah, for sure. If he picks up a fight, he will win. A lot of Cyclones already falling. One tank as well on the side of GuMiho, but there's too little remaining for Clem. That's gotta be it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, little back attack was nice, and then also having his own Cyclones, not as many, but, you know, enough to contribute, I think has done it. Clem's certainly not wrong to give this the old college try, stay in it as long as possible, and again, forcing or being forced into that base trade. But oh, I see. That is cute. Weird. Yeah. Like an actual last building killed scenario could still happen. Definitely what he's looking for here, and I don't know if there's any buildings floating for GuMiho here, so Clem's still trying to give himself a win condition, which is amazing because of how his army, but now GuMiho splitting 3 buildings to 3 different corners, and there is no air, right? There's no Viking out for Clem, so there's no chance. Yeah, he lost the starport, and obviously his Cyclones were back there trying to kill every building, which actually might have been the play. He wanted to try and come home and catch GuMiho running back, and that did not work out, so you got to wonder if he had just let the Cyclones tear apart the army, the base. Can GuMiho kill Clem, though?
he has zero resources. As
Wait,
well.
yeah, this actually could just be a draw, right?
Yeah, it could very well be a draw because like I don't see the pieces where GuMiho can or may not kill Clem. Like this might actually Clem might have actually forced a draw here.
That is so funny. I'm thinking of the Connect 4 game that Clem is playing for Showtime.
That's awesome.
Where it's like Showtime was like, well, I'm just trying to not let him win as long as possible. Kind of what's happening here. Clem is just that he's trying to go for an actual win with like the reproduction of the building production of the barracks again, but I don't know if that's gonna work. Auto turrets do come down, and they are feisty, especially without the whole might of GuMiho's army. But auto turrets are great, man. But it just at the end of the day, it's about lifted buildings, and no one has a Viking.
Yeah, and no one has a Viking, and despite GuMiho, I mean GuMiho has 7 workers somewhere. I want to see where they are and whether. Well, I
it
guess
doesn't matter.
Yeah, he doesn't have a CC. So
it's a draw.
It is a draw.
Excellent.
Well, Clem has minerals, so technically, could Clem ever get to Vikings? Does he have a command center? I guess it would be too risky to ever expose one of his command centers.
Yeah, no, he can't. He can't get back to mining, I don't think.
He has 2, so he could try with one of them.
Exactly. He could try with one of them, and then he could try and hide enough technology, the barracks factory, and then the starport guys. Like, that takes a long time. Clem's actually sitting back in his seat. I don't know if he's thought about the actual draw opportunity. Okay, good thing.
Yes.
I mean, he's obviously still disappointed. GuMiho's disappointed as well. But that is going to be it, guys. A draw for game number 1, TVT. Both players pretty amused now that that's over with, but not something that commonly happens at these events.
Yeah, I mean, technically, there was like the slightest percentage chance that Clem could have mined enough to drop back as a starport, but realistically, it would have never happened. GuMiho is way too good of a player to let that CC go down and make SCVs and build anywhere, which Clem was already attempting to do. So, yeah, the draw is the right call here, and yeah, that's gonna be game number 1, game number 0.
Game number 0, exactly. Well, I think everyone looked at the schedule and saw, like, 2 TVTs back to back. This could be a little while. And we thought maybe max 6 games. Apparently, it's max 7.
Love it.
This is kind of the result of the Cyclones dominating some of the early stages, though, I feel like. Because it is forcing some odder decisions. Because even if GuMiho played super defensive, there's complicating factors there for him on the defensive side. And again, if Clem had played, I guess if Clem had played quote-unquote appropriately, like tracked the army with his Cyclones, then it's not that weird. He eventually finds himself in a tank deficit, and that's not great for him. But then depending on, again, how the micro would have gone, it really depended on that. But then when you realize you didn't do that, what is the choice? This is the only choice that he could have made for GuMiho. I guess maybe he is regretting not staying at home, but I can't, it seemed like it was about to be a success. It seemed like he was across the map and about to win.
Yeah, I liked what you were saying there, right? Like, GuMiho did cross the map for the most part, and it felt like the onus of stopping him was on Clem to try to jump the army and to try to make something happen but right there and then. So to me, this should be a sigh of relief for Clem. To me, I feel like GuMiho had the better position going into things, and Clem kind of brought it back, right? It looked different when Clem had 80 supply to GuMiho's 50, but that was all workers, and that was quickly equalized. So really GuMiho in control of most of that game, and yeah, Clem bringing it back to a draw is good for him.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really important point to make. I think that he should be quite happy that it ended in a draw, not a loss. But we're back on Golden Aura, guys. In the top left for Cloud9, he is GuMiho.
And the bottom right-hand side for Team Liquid, his opponent, Clem.
Both teams having the color blue as kind of their standout, and they're like fighting over it in the lobby.
Yeah, for sure. Very storied teams as well. It's good to see Cloud9 back in StarCraft 2 with GuMiho, so yeah, props to them.
I think it's their first time, isn't it?
It might be.
It was. I think it's Navi's second time, technically.
Navi's his second time for sure. Yeah. That's just Strelok was Navi.
Yeah, way back.
Way back.
Before they were cool. StarCraft was cooler than Navi.
You're right.
Now
Yeah. StarCraft was cooler before cool before Navi.
Anyway, once again, some factory expands coming down. This is actually kind of a crazy scenario to have a draw first. We don't usually talk about draws and the mind games that go along with it, but we do talk a lot about a best of series having learning going on while it's developing. So you lose the first game as Clem, in that scenario, and then you're like, oh, okay, I now know kind of what GuMiho wants to do, but then it's a draw, and you go on the exact same map, and so far, exact same openers, we'll see what happens. Like, I don't know what you do as a pro gamer, because you can't practice that too much either, as far as, like, the mental game. You just, like, cleanse yourself of the first game and, like, really pretend it was game 0.
Yeah, I guess you got to be thinking about like what you could have done differently in that first game if you're gonna replay and go through the same motions, or maybe try to get ahead of your opponent if you saw some weakness in their opening, if you can anticipate that and just try to get ahead that way. I don't know what that is personally. These players would know a lot better, but yeah, we'll see if they do. We'll see if they have something in mind.
I personally, you know, obviously I don't really matter, but I would like to see Clem opt for the medevac opener. I think he's been having a lot of fun with that and more success with that, because I feel like that is most of his openers, is with the medevac, going for the harassment and then going for the potential main Cyclone attack. And not that it says, I'm saying it happens well every time he tries it, but he's almost always able to finagle his way into a decent position, even if that drop opener doesn't work, whereas that one, yeah, really fell flat on its face. It didn't actually get to do its matrix on the tank, kind of push pressure and then follow the army. So I don't know if you do that again. But then also, you are facing a guy who's not also playing the Mass Cyclone opener, which Clem has most recently gotten that practice against Beyond. So he might have been expecting it, and now he's like, I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely, and maybe the medevac is a good idea because of that as well, right? There's not going to be much for GuMiho to take care of medevac attacks and whatnot, so that could be an angle. And it is actually the medevac, so yeah, awesome read there. And yeah, I think Clem has the same idea as you, right? Like he saw what GuMiho was doing and likes the medevac idea.
Yeah.
So does GuMiho, though.
It is still, it was becoming a more common opener, a medevac something opener anyway. It was very popular on the factory expand, but then now the Cyclones just dominate the follow-up as well. So this would be a scenario in which both players are probably pretty familiar with. I imagine GuMiho is also facing a lot of Terrans that go into Cyclones. And so it seems like it's really weird, especially if they pass each other, you know, middle of the night, whatever. But this is actually pretty practiced. But it is GuMiho still going into that tank, so it seems like he's, oddly enough, as the weirder Terran player generally, he's the one refusing to do it.
Yeah, actually GuMiho might have seen it, which means he has to go back with his own medevac and try to be in position for this, but Clem may not have seen it because otherwise he should have just taken the quicker route with his own medevac towards GuMiho's base. Now GuMiho's going to be well in position, and Clem's going to have to evacuate here soon.
Yeah, but this is the exact scenario in which I'm saying he usually manages to make something work. And then this is also, two Reapers getting the
fresh mule.
They should.
Unless.
Hello? They definitely will.
Surely. There we go.
And a Marine, and an SCV, and an SCV, and
another
stop on a supply. Yeah, another one. That is a decent amount of damage. But then his follow-up also has, I feel, so much more potential because this medevac's kind of tracking the defensive army, where it is in the natural and how it's split up. And certainly Clem's going to be very mindful of not letting the army push out without him noticing. GuMiho's, like, again, kind of more standard TVT. It's a reason it was standard. It's got a lot of strength. It just needs to get across. This is such a small army to do that, though, and now Clem is absolutely tracking this push.
Yeah, but he's gonna take a fat volley to the face there, so one of the Cyclones will fall. Another 4 out on the field, but that means there's nothing to defend against these two in the main. So they are gonna have a field day with the SCVs here, who think better of pulling towards the Cyclones. Now with the help of the turrets and a Cyclone themselves, they will be able to dislodge, but Clem has to make something happen on the other side after having one of his Cyclones bruised. Will pick off a tank, though. That's huge.
Oh, that's actually a fantastic. There's not much left over, dude. The Marines can't tackle the Cyclones. One tank siege up, was hoping they'd be drawn into the fire. Eventually they were, but now what about now? The auto turrets come down to block out the Marines for a little while, and the SCVs have to be pulled. The quick pickup into the main base as he finds yet another tank with the lock-on, and Clem is finding that damage. The mobility and the micro potential of these units pretty much unmatched, and Clem would be the one to abuse it the most. GuMiho is trying to still get more damage on the side of the map, but guess what? More Cyclones are made. More Cyclones are being made. It's Cyclones everywhere, and they're the answer to everyone's prayers.
Indeed. So the Cyclones now go into the natural base. 25 SCVs have fallen so far. Clem is really the god of multitasking as far as TVT is. As far as any matchup is concerned, really, he is unmatched on those fronts. So GuMiho is going to struggle to keep up, and now he is 20 supply behind.
Yeah, it happens in the blink of an eye, doesn't it? It's literally, even on his offensive harassment, it also has been SCVs in the blink of an eye. just not as many. So yeah, GuMiho might be kind of sizing up the situation and realizing there's not much more to do. Because again, even if he does push out, if he's found in the middle of the map by Cyclones, he's going to lose each individual tank. And actually, at this point, I think Cyclones could even overwhelm if his tanks are sieged, especially if they have the medevac to get anything on this backside for us around. So Clem would have to be going down his own ramp into tank fire, I think, to give this one up. Let's see if he makes that mistake.
Yeah, GuMiho is doubling down on the siege as well by adding Liberators to the fray, so we'll see if that pays out as well. He's just trying to play a little bit kind of like offensively defensive, hoping that Clem will walk into his siege. And then, you know, you pick off a couple of Cyclones by default, and then you start having fun. But hey, this is a decent position for GuMiho here, so Clem in a little bit of trouble, perhaps.
Yeah, but the Ravens are still alive. Interference matrix being set up. There's literally nothing GuMiho can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he knew it was coming, but there's no valid option, and they are just going to get destroyed. Liberator in the main is hoping to find some big money, and right now it will, as Clem is focusing purely on taking care of the front army, but that's obviously still the most important thing. And GuMiho now at almost half the supply. It's got to be realizing it's getting more fruitless, and there it is, the tap out. Clem now officially taking game number 1.
Yes, indeed. Very nice game from him. Really, just multitasking with Clem is just not a really good idea for anyone, it feels like. And like you said, it felt like Clem just hitting faster with his medevacs and his Cyclones, just arriving faster to GuMiho's side of the map, was just such a blessing for him, because I felt like GuMiho saw it, so he's going to retreat, he's going to be fine, but at the same time, he's the one that's being kept on the defense. And Clem is so good, and he has a medevac and he has 2 Cyclones, so he's always just going to get as much juice as possible out of that, not really going to lose him. Just gonna squeeze as much value as he can, and that's all he needed to do.
Yeah, I think if you're lazy with Cyclones, they're as glass cannon-y as you can imagine. You know, they are. But if you're not lazy, then the potential is sky high. And that, you know, is probably why we're seeing it dominate more and more in the meta. I'm actually all for GuMiho proving that to be incorrect. That would be fantastic if we have some classic tank Raven openers against some Cyclone openers and the mixing and matching. Fantastic. But it is, you know, maybe a little worrying that GuMiho, at least for our, I don't know how you say, like official game 1, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, is kind of getting run around and is helping to display the strength of the Cyclone opener, and perhaps needs to be the one to adjust. I also would be really interested in knowing exactly how the games played out a month prior when GuMiho was on the wing streak versus Clem. I think that was before the Cyclone meta really dominated.
I see. Yeah, that could be interesting to see. I wonder if there's some readjustment that you can make with a Viking or something like that to put kind of like a timer on the medevac instead of the Cyclones themselves.
Yeah, it's so difficult though, because then, you know, there's a very big chance the Cyclones take out the Viking.
You're right. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. So it's a tough one. Now we'll see. Does Clem go back to the medevac then? That was very successful in the last game. Like, is that what he's gonna go for again? I would love to see GuMiho to try out something and try to make it work with the tanks and the Ravens, like you said. But Clem is a beast.
Yeah, he is. This guy's no joke. He can definitely bring it back in the top left of hard lead. He is Cloud9's GuMiho.
And his opponent in the bottom right-hand side, it is Team Liquid's Clem.
As far as the highest skill that I've seen displayed most recently, it has been that Byun Clem at TVT that Bea was bringing up on the desk. That is just literally a couple days old. And it was primarily Cyclones, and who could out position each other, who could out micro. But I would say that, you know, the micro when it comes to 2 concave Cyclones is like kind of comical. You know, like I guess there's some pullback micro, and if medevacs are around, obviously there's that. But I do feel like it's a lot more about mispositioning, basically forcing your opponent to tackle different locations and then getting the jump, and you're like, you thought I had 4 Cyclones on the left, it was 2, now I have 6 on the right, you didn't expect that. Because then it is just literally a numbers game. You both have 8 units in different positions. You know, there's a chance for the right position to work out. So it seems to be pushing more and more towards that. Let's see if GuMiho can successfully deter the TVT meta away from that opener, or if he's also going to feel like he's forced into it.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to do it, I feel like he has to be super defensive and just try to not allow Clem in at all with the medevac and then just have the stronger army kind of thing, right? Like, there was a couple of times last game where he did have good tank volleys, where the Cyclones kind of walked into the tanks a couple of times and Clem kind of paid for it, and that's, I guess, what you have to do, right? But it's tough for sure.
Well, GuMiho starts off with a little bit of a gutsy move here. Goes for reactor first, but Clem, not typically a 2-Rax player, although he was doing a lot of that online recently. But usually you're pretty safe. So GuMiho does get away with the double Reaper opener. I also have been seeing a lot less of the mass Reaper Hellion, like 5 Reaper 3 Hellion openers, because the Cyclones come out so quickly and so cheaply, and they can be reactored. So I don't know if GuMiho's planning for that one or just getting a jump start here. Okay, he's going to transfer off to Cyclones.
Oh. Right.
Okay. He gave it a solid try, Cats. Now it's back to Cyclones.
Yeah, isn't able to catch the Reaper here either. So both players, it's just going to be a wash to start. And yeah, I guess GuMiho's back to Cyclones, and it's Clem that's making one Cyclone at a time for the time being. So we'll see if he has something else in mind this time around, or if he's going to stick with it as well.
I do wonder if GuMiho thought there was more potential on the last map specifically, because if I can think of when I first saw the Cyclones as an opener, it's Cure on this map versus, I don't remember what Terran, but in GSL, and I was wondering if it would become a staple. So there might have been something to Golden Aura, in which GuMiho said, let's try a tank push, but now it's hard lead Cyclones, or like I was joking, he he gave it the old college try, get tank Raven, and now it's Cyclones are really the way to go. Not exactly sure which one, but I can tell you that I've just been so much more impressed with Clem's micro. GuMiho can pop off, just to be super clear. He can absolutely pop off on the mechanics, but I've always felt like GuMiho, the reason he's not a multiple GSL winner is a little bit of the mechanics.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the guy's a genius. There's no doubt about that. So we'll see if he has something cooking for this one. And Clem is going to move out 2 different directions, actually, with the Reapers and the Cyclones to make sure that he is spotting for his opponent as well. The 2 Reapers will get found in the middle of the map. And Clem decides to go back, perhaps, with his Cyclones. I'm not sure what the call is going to be here.
It's weird if you're going to go up the ramp, but it's also weird if the 3v2 situation, which is exactly what happens. And it's kind of stayed 3v2, but lock-ons lasted longer for GuMiho. Now it's 4v4, 4v3. GuMiho with a couple of Reapers, but the medevac micro on Cyclones is so powerful. So that's not going to get any headway there. But because they are both doing the Cyclone opener, it is one of those, who really comes out ahead, hard to say.
Hard to say indeed, but GuMiho's going to think better of things and go back for the time being, because Clem does have the advantage of repairing the Cyclones with the SCVs as well. So with that medevac picking up the Cyclone and allowing it to be repaired is just a really nice defensive position for him. On the other side, he's trying to make something happen with the medevac, but GuMiho's trying to spot for it.
Yeah, GuMiho's going double medevac, so he's just going to literally overpower Clem. So, if few Cyclones don't do trick, big Cyclone do trick. I wonder if he's going to do a double drop with like a main attack, or he's actually going to try and overpower. We're going to find out. He's not grabbing the faster Raven. He's not grabbing the interference matrix. The matrix is a questionable decision in the high number stakes, Mass Marine, Mass Cyclone, but auto turrets are fantastic. And Clem is just finding GuMiho in a weird position. Yeah,
but he doesn't know it, so he's being very hesitant right now. Now he realizes, okay, you're not home, but GuMiho's going to show himself on the other side of the map. Now he's going to go to work on Clem's side of things. So this is kind of a whack situation, very similar to Game 1, only with Cyclones instead of tanks. And everything is dying everywhere as far as SCVs are concerned.
This is TVT!
It's so ridiculous, actually. The exact same SCV count losses.
This is fantastic. GuMiho is dropping down farther in supply. The Cyclones are just more effective, I guess, for Clem on this side of the map. I don't even... We're not going to rewind this one and see exactly why GuMiho's supply plummets, but Clem stays kind of stable. Raven certainly did help out, and maybe the medevacs can still add a lot of micro for GuMiho, but his Cyclones are so injured.
A little bit too injured. On the other side, I guess GuMiho taps out. Wow, that was whack. I don't know what happened there.